Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Burning Banners, Rage of the Witch Queen, which is brought to you by Compass Games. It's for 2 to 6 players, ages 14 and up, and games generally run about 60 to 90 minutes. In the 5 centuries since the wound was closed, the kingdoms of Kalar have struggled to rebuild their shattered societies. Now, a resurgent empire has spread across the Great Sea, bringing civilization to an untamed eastern continent of Kraos. But Lilith, one of the immortal sorcerers responsible for the world wound, arrived first, preparing the way for the return of her dark mistress. For nearly 600 years, she has plotted and schemed. Burning Banners, Rage of the Witch Queen is a fantasy war game with fast playing and intuitive gameplay, with 29 scenarios that range from short campaigns with 2 kingdoms and 1 map to an entire 12-year war in which 6 kingdoms battle over 4 maps. With 2 ways to play, a quick playing basic game as well as an advanced game which introduces magic, heroes, and monsters guarding powerful treasures. You will march your armies and heroes through huge and detailed hexes, explore a vast, detailed fantasy world encompassing 4 game maps with 6 unique kingdoms and dozens of troop types. Gather your troops and prepare. So this is just going to be a broad overlook at this game. I'm going to give you some of the high points, but what I really enjoyed about it was the fact that there's so many different aspects of the campaign to engage with. And you can play the whole war if you want, but you can also just jump into any of the campaigns you want, and they vary from 2-player all the way to 6. I didn't get to experience a 6-player game yet, but the 2-player I did do, which was fun and engaging, and I really thought it was going to be somewhat daunting for the folks I was playing with because it is a war strategy type game, but it becomes very intuitive and easy to jump into. So setup and objectives is going to be very dependent on which of the campaigns you're playing. They have a sizable campaign book, and it might seem daunting at first, but it's really not. You jump in and you know what, we've got some fantastic flavor text around what you're doing, as well as showing you which armies or kingdoms are in play and what the objectives are. I love, again, this flavor text that they have going on, and the victory conditions, obviously your setup for each of the different kingdoms and what you're going to be doing as you engage with that campaign. And each of these setups will have some common threads, as you'd expect. You've got the invaders and the resistance, which armies and kingdoms those are, as well as the turn order and which maps are in play. This could be 1 to 4 maps, creating this huge, epic, sprawling world that you're going to be engaging with. The Goblin Apocalypse. The year is 589. The Witch Queen's call to the goblin tribes in the north has been answered. Eager for their share of the spoils in the coming war, the vermin of Karak swarm out of the mountains in numbers that eclipse even the endless hosts that marched south in 581. So as you can see, each of the campaigns is super thematic, and I love that the victory conditions are so wide and varied that you really have a different gameplay experience as you move through the entire war and through each of the different campaigns. So there are 6 different kingdoms that you'll be using through the course of the campaigns in the war, and they all have their own unique abilities as well as unique units that you'll be putting into play. And they give you these nice player boards that you can stack the units and get them ready to put out into the world. And now these units all have some really nice iconography, and as you get used to some of the icons, it'll just become very intuitive. But just at a glance, you can tell how powerful any one of these units are. The top right of a unit tile will show you at a glance how powerful those units are. When you try to engage in combat, you'll know exactly how many dice are going to be rolled. So there's a series of bars. You got black and white, and they represent black, the heavy dice, which are 8-sided, and the light dice, which are 6-sided. So when you're engaging in combat, you're going to be simultaneously rolling dice, and you'll deduct values based on who has more hits and so forth. But the thing here is that there is also stealth, which can allow your opponents to ambush. So you need to pay attention to their tiles as well for that. But I like this mechanism, how it's just quick and easy to know, like, oh, I'm not going to go after that unit because way more powerful. And that even holds true for the monsters in the advanced game. When you go up against monsters, they're going to have also those indications about which dice are going to be rolled. And if your unit takes damage and isn't destroyed, you flip over the tile showing that it has taken that damage. But if it's removed, then it just goes back to the player. So, you know, you'll be obviously recycling and putting your units out quite frequently and perhaps losing them, trying to gain ground or whatever the objectives are calling for that campaign. Now, on the top left of the unit will show the cost. You got to pay a cost in order to put it into play. And there's some rules about where and how you put them out, but again, it's going to be somewhat dependent on what you're doing and what the objectives of the campaign are, why you'd put them into play in a certain location. Like you might put miners out to go get money in the mines in order to help bolster your resources. The bottom right of the tile is all about movement. And if your unit happens to be huge, it will be indicated there. But the terrain types are going to dictate a lot of what you're doing here because, if you move into mountains, it might cost you more to move there, or if you're moving into low-lying areas and so forth. So those are things to keep in mind as you move over rivers, try to traverse them. And, some of the different kingdoms have advantages with water and so forth. So you have to take into account that as you're moving across this world, trying to fulfill the objectives of the mission. Now, the bottom left of the tile could have a series of icons, and they could be ranged from all kinds of things. It could be magic. If it's the advanced game, you would use magic. Also, you have if it's a ranged attacks, if they can fly, if they can regenerate, all kinds of different things. If it's a siege weapon, there's lots of different types of icons that could be there. But again, at a glance, you'll know exactly what these units are capable of. Each kingdom also has their own set of control markers. When you take over a city, you'll put your marker there so others know, and obviously it's a good way to track various things through the game, but those are crucial as well. But on the far right of your player board is for the advanced game. For heroes, there'll be a stack and they'll be face down, so when a hero comes into play, you'll flip it over to see which hero it is. And that is also true when you're engaging with monsters. They're going to be kind of randomly placed out like what you see here. There's monsters that are related to water as well, but they'll be placed and then you won't really know what monster you're going up against until you move into the area and try to attack it. So you better have some strength on your side when you move into those areas. And the monster tiles in particular, they're going to grant gold, you're going to get treasure, things like that. And if you're dealing with magic in the advanced game, there's a whole series of spell cards that will come into play as well. Each of the campaigns will also be using this season display. You'll be tracking several things here, like the players and the players' turns, as well as the year and the season, as well as income. So this track definitely comes into play quite frequently throughout the course of the war, and you'll be relying on it, obviously, for many things. But those are kind of the basics of what you have in this world and what you're using. Again, these maps are so beautiful, and I love how they stack out and build out the world as you advance through the war and through the different missions. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, this game has a lot going on, but it also becomes very easy and intuitive to jump into, which I was very surprised on a game of this scale, this type of game, a war game. They did a fantastic job just keeping the players in mind, and they have this fantastic user guide or cheat sheet, so to say, showing you the turn sequence, leading you through the different types of actions. Obviously, there's some free actions you can take as well through the course, and movement, and as well as combat. Oh my gosh, I love how easy that is. You're just comparing values. You're trying to hit the other player or the other units, and a 5 or better will hit. And then you just compare and reduce units from there. So just quick and easy to engage with, and it made the gameplay just very fast and engaging. Lots of interesting choices, but again, based on the campaign, will really determine what you're doing in the game overall. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.